Hey guys, Dr. Fisher here. Today we are here to discuss this book, which changed my life, Love Sense. We're going to discuss chapter 1 today. Chapter 1 talks about the need to understand what love is, right? So many of us struggle with this idea of what love is. On Google, it's been the main search many years in a row on different websites as well. And so we wonder what love is. It's such a hard concept. And so Sue Johnson talks about this, and she talks about the difficulties that many of us have had over the years, especially in science and research. It's such a weird and a difficult concept to grab and grasp and really have objective findings, at least from a general standpoint in the past. So, while love is very, very difficult, it's also essential for us. It's important for us now in our days where many of us don't have a small town that we live in. We don't have a village that keeps us going. And so in chapter 1, it talks about this idea of why it's important to understand these concepts with all of those things in mind. It talks about the idea of what it means between romantic love and general attachment. Because I have worked with so many patients over the years who have really struggled, whether they feel lonely or sad or anxious, depressed in general. I work with a lot of mental emotional struggles. Digestive things go along with that. And attachment is one of those pieces. Love is one of those pieces that is so hard to grasp in the past. And so as I've interacted with patients, as I've started to apply these principles, not only in my own life, but also as I incorporate them into other people's lives that I work with every day, I have seen tremendous changes with them. They have better relationships with others, better relationships with their children. Their moods are better when they struggle with the struggles that they struggle with, myself included. They better know how to reach out, have a voice, have those safe connections that they can turn to, and are able to be uplifted, okay? And she quotes many different authors and philosophers and different things like that. Because, for example, as she says here on page 4, love to so many of us seems a bewitchment, a force, powerful and dangerous that strikes us without our bidding, right? So much of my personal past has been struggling with what this idea of love means. What does it mean to be truly accepted? Most of my life, I feel like I've had to work towards being accepted or work towards being loved. And it's really important to understand that in a healthy attachment bond, right? Love is one of those situations. There's multiple components to this, and we'll talk about it as we go along. But love is one of those important pieces that can really help us, especially in our trying times nowadays. Dr. Sue Johnson does go along and talks about this idea that utilizing attachment from the theory that she's brought forth, as well as emotionally focused therapy, which is a form of therapy that's come from this book and or her education, that she has very, very good results. 70 to 75% success rate with those people that working with these attachment bonds, working on understanding what it means to be able to turn to somebody else, understanding and being okay with the difficulties that surround relationships. And I love the quote that she starts out here with, in chapter 1, The Love, a Paradigm Shift. I believe in the compelling power of love. I do not understand it. I believe it to be the most fragrant blossom of all this thorny existence. That's by Theodore Dreiser. Okay? It so sums up those struggles that I talked about, these difficult things of understanding what love is and how important connection truly is. Now, she starts off in the book talking about her own personal story of love, and I'll go ahead and share my own personal story of love. As I grew up, my family is a hardworking family. We strive to, help other people to be successful and to be proficient and efficient at the things we're trying to accomplish, understanding what services we're offering to people. serving others. That was a big thing growing up in my own life. But I know that I've struggled with this idea of understanding what it truly means to have someone be emotionally available for me, emotionally connecting and feeling safe enough to be able to connect with somebody else. And so there's a component of belonging, right, that comes along with this. And there's a lot of struggles that I've had throughout the years. I remember in high school, a girl that I had fallen in love with, high school love, and for whatever reason, she broke it off with me, and I just remember being completely and totally devastated. And that's one of the times that really strikes me and sticks out from my own mind, where my mom was really there for me. She didn't know what to do. Most of the time, my mom likes to fix things, which we don't always want to have our things fixed after we're the age of 2, but this was one of those times where she just didn't know how to help me, and so what she did was the best thing that could have been done for me, which is to sit and be with me while I cried, and I was so depressed and so sad and so love-stricken, so disconnected. And so this applies to so many of us. Really, it applies to all of us. All of our physiology, all of our brains, all of our bodies are made up for this idea of love and connection. And, oftentimes when we get into this place where we're talking about love, a lot of people don't have any hope in relation to love. They don't have a belief that you can actually be safe enough to be able to connect with other people. And those are really tough situations. Now, I've seen some pretty amazing miracles as we've worked on relationships, as we worked on healing the past, worked from connecting with those who care about people now. That's really made a huge difference in the people that I've seen their lives change. Now, she quotes Charles Darwin and talking about this idea of being connected with other people. And he goes through this list of the pros and cons for this connection of being married before finally proposing to his cousin, Emma Wedgwood. In favor, he noted, children, constant companions, friends in old age, object to be beloved and played with, better than a dog anyhow, a nice, soft wife on a sofa with good fire, and books and music. These things, good for one's health. Against it, he wrote, perhaps quarreling, loss of time, cannot read in the evenings, anxiety and responsibility, less money for books, etc. I never shall know French, or see the continent, or go to America, or go up in a balloon, or take solitary trips in Wales, poor slave. Right? So each one of us have our own inward battle. Is it worth putting all this effort and energy into connecting and attachment? And I say that it is. So one of the things that she talks about in here too is the fact that we used to have communities, small communities, that allowed us to feel important, allowed us to feel connected. We had people that we knew, people that supported us. You've probably all heard the term, it takes a village to raise a child. And this is very true in the old sense, where you were able to be connected to multiple people and multiple people were able to be supportive of you. Well, in our day and age, as technology has advanced, as we've moved outside of cities, as we've moved away from being close to our families, like my own self. We live in Washington. My folks live in Utah. My wife's folks live in Alaska. We don't have close family nearby. And so what we do have is each other. As we went through med school, as we went through moving and working for somebody else, as we moved through our own journey. So connection has changed over the years. It's gotten smaller and smaller, and so it's more important than ever to be able to understand why connection is helpful, why attachment is helpful, why it's important to understand love. And we can, and it's helpful to be able to understand the context that love comes from. So one of the other components of this is she talks about, or it's really important for you to understand this concept that gets mixed up in our day and age, which is sex and love. Sex is not love. Love is not sex. They're two different things. Love is an attachment component. Sex is a thing that happens between two individuals. And so they're very different. But in our modern day society, we often hear songs, for example, that say, I want to love this person. when in reality, it's just the other. And so in my own journey, I've come to realize that these things are different. Love is not sex, sex is not love. Adult romantic love is an attachment bond, just like the one between mother and child. A mother and child bond. They support each other from the sense of the child speaks or coos, the mother, has fun, plays with the baby, same with the father. Those attachment bonds are the same bonds that we have when we become an adult. That's a really important piece to understand. A lot of people in the past, a lot of philosophers, even a lot of psychiatry, sociology, has said that when we become an adult, we need to be independent. We need to be not connected to others. That's a really common fallacy, even in the United States. In reality, we all need to be interdependent upon each other in order to truly be independent. Now, one of the things she quotes here is, emotional dependency is not immature or pathological. It is our greatest strength. Dependency, as I described, is a dirty word in our traditional Western society, and it's been long held that you have to be self-sufficient, but that's just not true. Another thing that's really important to understand too is, so often you'll pick up a magazine, and in the magazine, you'll see, oh, here's 30 ways you can get your partner, or here's 10 hot sex tips you've got to use to get them from across the room, right? So many people think that performance and understanding physiology, which was my error. I thought that if I knew how to perform, if I understand a woman's physiology, if I performed in bed and gave great sex, that my wife would love me more. But really, that's not actually true whatsoever. It's actually quite the opposite. And as I've gone through this healing process, I actually understand that more, that it's actually the healing attachment. As she says in the book, and I quote her here, she says, hot sex doesn't lead to secure love. Rather, secure attachment leads to hot sex, and also to love that lasts. And she talks about monogamy, okay? And she talks about the fact that being with one partner is really what our physiology is set up for. So, this is a controversial topic, and please comment in the comments below, but the idea here is really our best situation is going to be one in which we are set up to be with one partner, to learn how to be connected, to learn how to be safe with that person, to learn how to have a dialogue, to be able to have heated conversations where you honor each other as human beings, as you are attached to each other, as you learn how to then reconnect with each other. So she goes through several different aspects here about fallacies, old thought processes, things that were backward thinking. These ideas stem from John Bowlby. He was an English doctor that worked with troubled youth. And his ideas were very much looked down upon. But that's what really most of attachment research now in our day and age is really focused on, is John Bowlby's work. He's really the father of attachment. Another great quote here is, we are not created selfish. We are designed to be empathetic. Our innate tendency is to feel with others and for others. Really, if you think about children, if you think about a small child who just gets really engrossed in, for example, a small bug on the ground, how much they can actually look at and see a parent and or a friend, and they can see them and they can go over and they can have empathy for that person. We all innately have that quality of empathy, with few exceptions. But generally speaking, that quality tends to be subdued, suppressed, especially from the masculine side of things. And that's a cultural issue. And there are many other things that really go into that idea. And so one of the things she talks about is the fact that just like in physics and science, we have a hard time universally coming to an agreement upon, what makes up our existence. But she talks about the fact that there is now a unified theory of love, and how understanding that love or our lovers provide that safe haven from the vicissitudes and depredations of life, those difficult components of life. And that gives us new insight into the importance of and the utility of romantic love and romantic relationships, and how it's important to understand that we all fail and succeed in different ways, but our goal is to be able to do these things long term. So it's really important to understand that happy relationships are drawn from this idea of being connected, are drawn from this idea of learning how each other needs different things in order to feel loved and safe and supported. And the beauty of this process too is this is the fastest way to improve your sex life, if that's of interest to you. So she finishes off talking about emotionally focused therapy and the importance of learning how to turn to your partner, slow things down, understand and have empathy for each other, understanding what each other needs in order to feel safe so you can heal these attachment bonds, and then we'll turn around and heal your other bonds and your other relationships, and you become stronger and more independent because of this. She leaves us with an experiment at the very end, talking about the idea of if you were left in a dark room by yourself, what kind of help would you want? Would you want to call out to someone? Would you struggle to call out to someone because you don't believe anybody's going to be there? Would you look for seeing that person and then once you see them, you feel ashamed or you feel like you can't call out to them because you're not really sure how you want that interaction to go. You're not really sure that person's going to be there for you or provide the space for you. This is a really wonderful tool and technique, something I use in the clinic all the time. Asking people these questions, being able to help provide that space so they can go and actually get into this. She actually talks about doing this over a 30-minute time frame where you're sitting and you're feeling and you're really getting into this. Being able to be provided with time to then think about these things and how this actually affects you. And it really, I remember the first time I did this, it really helped me understand how much avoidant I was. How much I so wanted to turn to those that I care about, but I didn't believe that they were going to either be there for me, or I remember as I started going through this process, I remember thinking that my emotions were so scary and I had to avoid all of those people that I loved and cared about because my emotions would blow me up like a nuclear bomb and kill everybody that I cared about. So this is the end of our review of Chapter 1, Love Sense. I hope you enjoyed that, and please follow us, like us, and stay tuned for our next Chapter 2 review of Love Sense. We'll also be doing several small snippets of this, so please look out for those as well. This is Dr. Fisher, signing out.